Greetings and welcome to Spin a Yarn Live, the Tea Time Book Club and
Crafting Circle.
That's right. It's been 2 weeks. And welcome to our last pre-recorded non-live live show.
That's right.
We are going to be doing the second book of Dresden Files today.
Full Moon.
Yeah. But first, tell us about the tea we have.
Okay. So this week, we have a very interesting herbal tea. It's a cranberry apple tart. And this is another tea that we got from the Spice and Tea Exchange in Charleston, South Carolina. It definitely has quite a sweetness to it. It's a herbal tea, but yeah, see, I didn't think he'd like it. I don't think he likes it. You can definitely taste the cranberry and the apple in it. It's not for everyone. I like it, but only, it has kind of a tartness to it, but I didn't think you'd like it. This first time that we've tried the tea, so I brewed it and I was like, oh, let's see what it's like. And then I took a couple sips and I was like, ooh, I really like this. And then Paul's like, you're going to pour me my tea? And I was like, you're not going to like it.
It happens. Let's see. So at this point, we'd ask you to put the projects you're working up on Twitter with the hashtag SpinItAll. Yarn it all. My bad. Hashtag I'm even making a bookmark with that hashtag on it, and I still get it wrong, of course.
It's okay.
Because we're professionals.
Totes.
No. But again, last of the non-live live streams.
Yeah. For our live stream, we're going to start with some sci-fi. We're going to do, I was about to say Guardians of the Galaxy. No.
Hitchhiker's Guide.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yes. I was close.
You had the galaxy. You had the right galaxy.
We'll get to that when we get to that. Anywho, we are talking about Full Moon, the second of the Dresden Files series. And, the first book, when we discussed Stormfront, it's a whodunit kind of a thing, and this is the same spiel, a whodunit kind of a thing. Maybe you can tell from the title of the book that we're dealing with moon stuff, so of course we were dealing with werewolves.
Yay!
Such fun. What I found interesting is that they talk about 3 different kinds of werewolves in this book.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah, 3.
I think it's just 3. Bob talks about 3 of them. And interestingly enough, we actually get to see all 3.
We run into all of them.
All 3 breeds, as it were, of the werewolf. So when I first started reading this book, and I started it earlier this week, after having read Moon Called by Patricia Briggs, and then I kind of started in on some of her short stories, I found it difficult to get into Full Moon.
Yeah.
Not saying that the writing isn't as good, the writing's just different. But Harry, we talked about it in the first book, he's not the most likable character. Yeah. And it's hard to kind of get into it. I think I have somewhere written, I have a little note here saying, Harry's an idiot who needs to share more information. Too many people die because he doesn't want to share info. Idiot.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, that gets into one of my points about him.
Yeah, I guess he's supposed to be a sympathetic character in that, he doesn't understand everything. Like, he likes to be like, oh, I'm the grumpy wizard. He always describes himself as a grumpy wizard. And it's like this persona that he works so hard to be, I guess. But it's just, it gets annoying and frustrating.
So... this book is by far my least favorite of the entire Dresden series books. A lot of the second books of series I find I really dislike. Like this one, the second Harry Potter book I was not a fan of.
So, not my favorite.
My second least favorite of this series is the first book. Starting from third book on, it goes uphill, which is why we're discussing it on this channel. We just have to get through a couple books to...
Right. I'm actually excited because the next book is Grave Peril, and I like Grave Peril. It's funny, it's fun. I like Grave Peril a lot, or as I recall. I've only read the series once through. This is my second time reading it through. With Paul, I think you've already read the series twice. This is your third time.
Yes.
But as I recall, Grave Peril is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't remember which one that is. Because after the second book, reading the third book on kind of all
blurs together.
Works. Like, you want to just keep reading. So I can't remember what happened in which specific book. Even though I remember a lot of the big events.
All right. Well, I mean, because I was looking at the front of it, and maybe not the front of it. I read the digital version on my Nook. Okay, this does not have the list, unless it's in the back, of the books that he had already written. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Stormfront, Full Moon, Grave Peril.
Yeah.
So, and then Summer Night, Death Masks, and blah, blah, blah. And these are all great books.
Oh, yeah.
What's not in here, and this, I'm not sure when this particular one was published. I guess in 2001. And he's written, as of now, 15 books. We're eagerly awaiting the release date for peace talks because, I mean, once you actually get through and read all these books, and by far, in my opinion, Skin Game, which, yes, Skin Game, which is the most recent one as of this video, should be the 15th one. I mean, it is so good.
Yeah.
It is just a fun read.
Yeah, they definitely keep, as I said, keep getting better.
They do. They get better. They do get better. And, you know, it's tricky when you have to read a series that, especially if it was like the writer's first series that they've put out, and it sometimes it might take them a couple of books to get into it and get into the flow of it, but then when they do, you're just oh, so good. So,
yeah.
Yes. But yeah, this one...
Yeah. Well, one of my problems with this is my problems with early Dresden. Like you mentioned, the whole idiot thing, is he brings out this idea of chivalry again, which first of all is not the historical chivalry, which is horsemanship, but it's also not really chivalrous because instead of like protecting the weak, he chooses that all women are the weak to be protected.
Which is hilarious because Lieutenant Karen Murphy often bashes him about a bit. In fact, in this book, she lays him out in a particular scene because she's just, she's had enough of his shit. And bear in mind, she is like 5'0". They've said this, that she's 5'0", and Harry
and
is...
she looks like a cheerleader. Right.
He describes her as, with the button nose and all this stuff, and describes her as cute, and he's always like, oh, she would hate it if I ever described her as cute. And he keeps doing that, and I'm like, I'm beginning to hate that you describe her as cute.
Yeah.
But of course, she has all, she's a police officer. She's trained, obviously. And she has all of these trophies from doing Aikido. Yeah. Now, if you know anything about Aikido, which Paul knows a
different
about
version than police trained, but yeah.
A different version. You did Kuki Kai Aikido. But the point about Aikido, if you're not familiar, is using your own opponent's weight against them.
Yeah.
The idea is you're stable as a rock and you throw the other person across the room.
Yeah.
Now, when you're 5'0" and your opponent is, north of 6'5", like Dresden is, he falls like a tree. Hard.
Yeah.
And, it's funny. Sort of.
And, yeah, if you ever get a chance to look up Aikido or whatnot, it's really great because one of my teachers in college, when I was in the Aikido club, she was kind of like Karen Murphy, small. You would not imagine that she could lift a 6-foot brutish man. Now, Dresden is not brutish. He's
lanky,
he's scrawny.
bulky, yeah.
But, because we had two main teachers and then like a guest teacher. The third one was easily like 6'4", and he had plenty of muscle on him. And yeah, my female teacher, she had the technique, and you have to have the technique. So he would fly 8-10 feet in the air before hitting the ground again. And that's just kind of what Aikido is. So
right. So Harry is always like, oh no, I have to protect my friend Karen from all the blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so what's kind of nice is that in a particular portion of the book, when he's completely knocked out and totally unconscious, he meets his other self.
That was a really fun scene.
Yeah, so this is the first time that now this is a recurring theme.
It does.
Where he's asleep or unconscious or whatever, and this other side of him comes out. His, how do they describe it? I think it's his ego or the id. It's the primal side.
Yeah, the instinctual side. I forget the whole Freudian or whatever.
Well, it's not Freudian.
Classification, not Freudian.
But
that would make a much more interesting scene.
So anyway, he comes out and he's kind of yelling at Harry like, yeah, you need to, because Harry wants to protect. His idea is that ignorance is bliss. Is the idea for regular humans who don't know anything about it. So his theory is that if he keeps Karen in the dark about all the things that he has to deal with, the White Council and vampires and werewolves and yada yada yada, he thinks that the ignorance will keep her safe. And his other side is like, no.
One of his other justifications, which is an actual real justification, is if the White Council finds out that he told... Like, the fact that he's a public wizard is bad enough, but the whole White Council itself is kind of this secret organization of wizards.
Hilarious.
Even though they're...
known by everybody.
Yeah. So, yeah, if he tells... a mortal, basically, a human, about the White Council, they might come and dispose of both Harry and Karen.
True. They'll see Karen as, I guess, a security risk.
So that was kind of his reasoning, kind of in the first book, of keeping her in the dark. Because he was already suspected by the White Council, like, under the, whatever that Damocles thing is.
I don't remember.
Sword of Damocles? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So it's kind of ramped up to 11 in this book, where he does not give dangerous information to anyone, and it comes back and bites him in the butt.
Like, there's a young woman, again, who has a bit of magical talent, not enough that she could be considered a wizard or a witch. But she has just enough magical talent that, he describes her as his, like, on again, off again apprentice.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'll teach her a couple things, that kind of stuff. And she asks about a circle, and she's not as forthcoming as maybe she could be.
She doesn't explain why she needs to know.
About why she needs to know. And what the circle is it's a way to keep this particular kind of werewolf contained during the full moon. And,
again, in the beginning, it's kind of shaky, and it's the first time we see him not giving information, so you kind of go with it. But it's like the outer circle is to keep fae or other spirits out.
Yeah.
The second circle is to keep material things out.
Right, like from the physical.
And then the third one is basically to keep
demons.
Like the old demons, like the most powerful of all things.
In or out.
In or out.
In or out. So, what she's... Sorry.
So, of course, the only one who needs to know about that inner circle is kind of the one who is trying to unleash or trying to bring a ancient, horrible demon to the world and keep it contained and hope it doesn't break loose.
Right.
Or... So he tells her not to play with it.
Right, because she's saying, oh, it's purely for academic study, and he kind of,
knows that.
He goes with it for the first two circles and explains all of it and blah, blah, blah. But then he gets to the third one, realizes what it is, and he's like, no, I'm not going to tell you about this. Even for academic knowledge, you don't need to know it.
And you need to, whatever you're doing, get away from it.
Right, but not really an option, since, It is to contain a werewolf who the circle that he had was like in silver and in gold and all this stuff, and he had it inlaid in the basement of his house to keep him contained because he's conscious of this curse that's been passed down from family member to family member, that kind of stuff. But it gets destroyed. Huh?
Yeah, nothing.
No, it gets destroyed by our main villains.
Yeah.
And I mean, I will give this book credit because it took me a moment to remember who done it in this particular book, and I had forgotten a lot of the things. Like I'd forgotten completely about the Street Wolves, about the biker gang. I totally forgot about the biker gang completely. And the scene where the where our main bad guys are. We're assuming our audience has read the book, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So when the FBI agents come in, because they're the baddies, it's always the government. No. When they come in and they dispose of the street gang, that was the scene that I kind of remembered, and I thought that was the climax, which it is not. But then we have, so there's the three different wolves. You got the I can't pronounce them. The Hexenwolfen, Wolfsen. He took German. Okay, I took Spanish and French.
Basically, Hexenwolf.
Hexenwolf, yeah. So the Hexenwolves are the ones who use the belts, to turn into wolves, and kind of instinct kind of takes over, and you're kind of yourself, but like the most primal aspect of you essentially turn into a beast. And then we've got the
Loup-garou,
I think, is how you say it. And that's the one who's actually cursed. He can't help it. He knows he turns into a monster every month, and he wants to contain himself. And then we've got the third kind, whose title I've forgotten.
Yeah, I don't even remember that.
I don't remember. Bob was telling us about all this
stuff. The lycanthrope. Well... No, there's four kinds.
There's four.
So,
sorry, because the street wolves are the ones who
are lycanthropes, which
right.
in this universe means they don't actually change form. It just they get the craze of the beast, as it were. They do become more powerful and get a lot of the healing, but they mainly stay humanoid.
Yep, hang on.
And then the final one is I forget the name, if they gave it a name or just werewolf.
Theriomorph.
Okay.
Anything that shapeshifts from a human being to an animal form. Okay, so basically for that one, you can turn into a wolf, but you still have your human consciousness. So all your senses are heightened and everything. You can hear better, smell better. You're in the body of a wolf, but you're still human.
Yeah.
So they mentioned about how it takes you a while to adjust. You're used to being on 2 feet, now you're on 4 feet, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is weird.
They don't get the instincts of the wolf along with them.
Right. They gotta learn as they go. So we got every flavor in this book. We got every flavor, and it does take a while to figure out, that it's the FBI agents who have been planning all of this. They're trying to, frame the rich guy who turns into an actual werewolf, turns into a beast, and controls nothing. I mean, that's like a literal curse.
Yeah.
That he has to go through. So, oh god, it's a hot mess, this book.
It is hot.
It's a hot mess. There are a lot of people, I used to work in a bookstore. And I had recommended the series to a customer, and the customer was like, oh yeah, I've read that series, but it's kind of annoying because no one in that series ever dies. And upon rereading the book, that dude, I don't know what his definition of death is, but a lot of people die. A lot of people die.
Yeah.
I think his idea is that he says none of the main characters.
I mean,
die,
Carmichael dies in this.
Carmichael dies in this.
Yeah.
But we know that because a main cast member, if you will, dies later on in this series as well, and it's still like, people do die. I mean, it's actually kind of disappointing because in Mercy Thompson series that I've been reading, the Mercyverse, it's all about werewolves and the idea of pack and the idea of mating bonds and like all that jazz. And you've got two characters in here: the rich guy who's cursed to turn into a werewolf, and what's interesting,
a wolf who turns into a human.
A wolf who turns into a human.
Kind of like Chopper from One Piece.
Yeah. Except not quite as cute. Although she's described as being just absolutely beautiful in her human form.
Yeah, described by Dresden.
Usually naked.
Which is probably why he's always focused on her.
What are you gonna do? But anyway, so that was an interesting thing that it's not really revealed into the end of the book. You get hints about it because like she kind of adopts the kids who can just turn into their wolf forms.
Yeah.
She kind of adopts them. Like that's the one magic trick that they know. They're not wizards or witches or anything. They know the one magic trick, and that is just to turn their physical form into a wolf. which is pretty cool. Not as big as the other guys, mind you. But, so Tara West kind of adopts them and kind of teaches them, and you can see, like, whenever she regards them, she always regards them with pride, or she's very protective, you know, and all this. So she's sort of their alpha, I suppose. And she kind of teaches them, you know, she teaches them how to do it and how to acclimate to being on 4 legs and, you know, all that jazz. Hey, Joe Cyrus.
Which is interesting, because if you're going to turn into a wolf and have no wolf instincts, having an actual wolf who becomes human teach you is kind of a good teacher.
That's a great advantage. But so anyway, it's you know, it's a little disappointing. It was kind of disappointing for me because I couldn't remember because Tara and McFinn, or MacFinn, the guy who's cursed to be a werewolf, they're engaged, and you know they're gonna be married and they're mates and all that jazz, and you know, unfortunately, at the end of the book, he is killed.
Yeah. Which
is very sad. And I was just kind of like, oh, that's not a happy thing for Tara. And Tara does just kind of leave, and you're left thinking, what about the kids?
Well, yeah,
you know,
it's kind of implied that she just leaves human society altogether.
Mm-hmm.
She's just gonna go back to being a wolf in the Northwest.
In the Northwest and stuff. She says she has family. She'll go find them again. Presumably wolves who do not know how to turn into humans, that kind of stuff. But I guess the implication is she's taught the kids all that she can or she will or whatever. So she kind of leaves them. It's very interesting because if we want to compare it to Mercy Thompson, there's definitely a hierarchy in the pack. And there's a lot more magic involved in the idea of their pack. And, you know, I mean, it's you know, different book, different series. So different
rules.
Mythology, different rules, you know, taking that kind of stuff. But it is kind of interesting, in my opinion, because Mercy Thompson is written by Patricia Briggs, who's a woman. And so in the hierarchy of the wolves, there's always an alpha male. Yeah. And the female wolves take their place by their mates. And if they don't have a mate, then they're lowest in the pack, you know, stuff like that. Just wonderful chauvinistic stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, and that builds up to plot points in the books. Like, it's clearly something important for the author, for her to write about.
It is. And we will get into Patricia Briggs. We were going to do a Moon Called episode, which we've not done yet, but we will do it because we do want to discuss the series. It's a really, really great series. Yeah. Very fun series.
So if you came into this episode wondering what happened, because I think we announced that we were going to do Moon Called last episode.
We did. And then we didn't.
It is not a missing episode. If you didn't bring that up, I was going to just gloss over it then let people wonder if it was a missing episode.
No,
we just haven't.
We have not gotten to the recording of that. We had planned for this week to be the second Dresden book, so we decided to keep with that schedule. So we will at some point release an episode about the first Mercy Thompson book. But anywhoozle, back to what I was talking about. So you know, so in that universe, you got the alpha males and stuff. But in this one, the group of kids, they're college kids who are able to turn themselves into wolves.
Who take on the name Alphas, which is hilarious.
It is hilarious. Because they don't really, because they always kind of follow Tara West. They follow the wolf. But then she leaves, and it's not really made clear. You've got Georgia, and you've got Billy.
And they kind of co-lead.
They do, because there's definitely... They disagree and they kind of fight about it, but not on the same level. Like if you ever read Patricia Briggs, or the Mercy Thompson books, or the Alpha Omega books, it's not on the same level. I mean, when the wolves fight for dominance, they tend to fight to the death.
Yeah. And, of course, a lot of that comes from Dresden, or Jim Butcher, focusing more on the whole wizard side of things, and werewolves just being one of the tiny offshoots, whereas in...
Patricia Briggs.
Mercy Thompson series, it's all about werewolves.
It's all about the werewolves.
So it's a lot more developed.
It is a lot more developed. But I just found it interesting that they didn't really say that Billy was the leader, or that Georgia was the leader, that it's kind of like, well, we will see.
Yeah, it definitely leaves questions, because both of them could become the leader.
Right. And it's actually kind of fun. They are a recurring character. They are recurring characters, so the alphas will come back and... help or hinder, you know, depending. Yes, Osiris, you're in the way. You're in the way, kitty. Let me give him a treat.
So one thing, jumping back a minute to the to Dresden talking to his subconscious.
Oh, yes.
It amused me because what that section basically is
Oh, you're on my knitting. Hang on.
a whole exposition dump of this is what you as a reader should know at this point. Like things you probably could have figured out if you were paying attention, but it's like we need you to know all of these different things.
Are you gonna drink this, baby?
Oh, well, you can have it if you want it.
Well, I'm just asking. It's cold now.
And so it's definitely an exposition dump, like, hey, let me just re-summarize everything that's happened as if you haven't just read it. Mm-hmm. But it's done in a very interesting and kind of a unique way, this whole talking to himself, the way he plays off of himself.
Which is interesting, to say the least.
Is also done very interestingly. We're going to keep using that word. And it works. Like, it works as a very fun portion of this story, even though it is completely an exposition dump.
It is an exposition dump, but it brings up some very interesting things having his subconscious, because the way he describes his subconscious, and this gets mentioned in a later book, but we've already discussed the idea of dark wizards with the first book, right? The idea of warlocks, of wizards gone bad who are using their powers for evil. That's all I have. So he mentions later, because his alternate persona in his mind is wearing all black. He's wearing all black. He's got this little goatee thing going on, as we all know from Star Trek. If it's a goatee, it's evil. Mm-hmm. You know, and all this stuff. So it becomes this kind of, because we see it a lot with Harry. We see him fight with his evil, or, you know, with his darker side, not wanting, you know, partially wanting to give into the evil or not, you know, this kind of stuff. And like when he uses the belt at the end of the book to one of the wolf belts at the end of the book to bring down one of the FBI agents, or well, all of the FBI agents actually, you know, he's gonna kill the guy. He's gonna snap his neck, and then Susan comes in and realizes that it's Harry in this wolf form, and she's like, you know, oh my god. And then he feels totally disgusted with himself, you know, and he throws it away and blah, 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 and all this stuff. So, but we do get a little hint. What I like about this book, and what I totally forgot, is he's talking to a demon at one point who's, he's trying to figure out about McFinn, about Harley McFinn, who is the one who's cursed, who turned into a werewolf every moon.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that demon.
Yeah, Chauncey.
Chauncey.
His name's Chauncey.
Ziggurat or something.
Right, and he speaks with a very Oxford accent.
Here, we'll talk about him after you get your point out.
Well, my point is him.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about his scene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about his scene. Because what's interesting is he baits Harry, right? We talked about this with the first book. If you give out your entire name, and Harry has 4 names, if you give out your entire name, then that gives otherworldly creatures some control over you. So he's bartering back and forth for data, and Chauncey has 2 of his names. He has Harry Dresden, and so he's bartering back and forth, and he's like, "I will give you the information you want. I'll give you all the information you want on this particular subject for another of your names." And Harry's like, well, he's the pros and cons, and he's finally like, okay, I'll give you another name. So he gives him one of his middle names, and he has 2 middle names. So now he's got 1 name left that this demon doesn't know. So he gives him the information, and they talk back and forth, and then, and then Chauncey mentions his mom and his dad, saying how they're unnatural deaths. Now, Harry always thought that his mother had died in childbirth, and his dad had died in an aneurysm a couple of years after, you know, he had been born. I think he said he was 7 or 8.
Yeah.
He was a little kid when
and Chauncey also mentions that everyone downstairs knew of his mother.
And her redemption. And he says this was such a malice, her redemption. And Harry's like, wait. Roll it back there. What? And the guy's like, oh, well, I'll be happy to give you more information for another one of your names. Thus giving him all 4 names. And Harry's like, I've been totally duped.
Yeah.
I've been duped this whole time by this crab person thing. Crab people. Has been duped by this guy, and because these demons of the underworld who knew his mother want Harry.
Yeah.
Because they're like, this guy inherited his mom's power,
Yeah.
so this is the guy we want. And Harry's like, what? Like, he doesn't know anything about his mom. He figured his mom was a wizard, but he didn't know. I mean, his dad was just a magician. He wasn't actually a magical person. He was a human. But, you know, he was like, whoa, you know, maybe this is something, you know, because he considers it. Because Chauncey mentions maybe other family members that he might have. And knowing what we already know, well, what Paul and I already know, having read the series.
Yeah, which they may not know
Which
yet.
they may
because
not know
we're not
yet.
spoiling anything.
We're not spoiling anything. But it's an interesting foreshadowing about all of this. And talking about saying, oh, his parents died unnaturally. And Harry's like, nah, they did. Nah. You know, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's a very interesting scene because it gives us a little bit of insight.
I also kind of got duped by Chauncey. And I have a reason for this. Is, in the Zant books, which we may or may not ever talk about, Catherine's not a fan of the one she heard me read to her.
3.
You got through 3?
Mm-hmm. You read me the first 3 books.
No.
Yeah, you did. I didn't like them.
I can guarantee I didn't read the 3rd one to you.
Well, you read me at least 2. Yes, you did. The point that Paul's trying to make...
Anyways, so the good magician in that series, he summons a demon who also has this very Oxford accent, has spectacles, and like when he gets summoned, you know, he appears kind of like on a stool reading a book. And you can tell that the good magician and this demon Beauregard, I think his name is. You wouldn't know. You can tell they're kind of allies. Very similar to Zant, which we talked about, where Garkin and Oz were colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, we have another demon summoning where the demon is very up. And in Zant, the demon world is kind of like how Perv is in Myth, or kind of like real world-ish. A lot of bureaucracy and stuff. But not overly evil. So we get this specific demon in Harry Dresden.
Who, you know, he recognizes the rules. He has to put up a fight, you know, to get out of the circle when summoned. And then he's all, you know, like, oh, Harry,
very
so
proper.
nice to see you again.
And and it's said that Harry has summoned him like 6 times before.
Someone he's spoken to.
So, like, my thought was, okay, well, this is a demon that Harry has.
No, I thought he was, you know, I thought he was okay too.
Yeah, and then we find out then, and I was like, I should have known, but there's so many books that do that where they spin the trope of a demon being evil around, and the demon's actually just a person.
Yeah.
That playing the trope straight or spinning it around twice definitely got me off guard, even though it really shouldn't have.
It shouldn't have, because, I mean, again, having read these books before, I mean, the demons are for some realsies demons. They're not...
Yeah.
They're not good. They're bad. They're really bad. Like, I mean, you know, not to be... Yeah, not to... not,
just in case you didn't know.
Demons are bad.
Demons be bad.
Demons be bad. But it's...
If a demon wants to make a deal with you, say no.
It's no. Or a devil.
A devil.
But yeah, so he does this, and he baits Harry, and he gets him, and it's interesting because it gives us this first little insight because he says that his mother was redeemed.
Yeah.
So the question is if she was redeemed, then she had to have fallen first. Oh, what happened? Oh.
Yeah.
So so now it's intriguing. It's like, and this is something that happens in these books. You get little hints. Little hints here, little hints there.
And we really didn't get much in the first book, but I think that was because first book was going to be standalone. Whereas when you make a second book of series, you know it's going to be a series. Whether you ever finish it or not is another thing. But you're planning it as a series at that point. So yeah, this book we get a lot of foreshadowing for a lot of different things. Some that you don't even recognize until multiple read-throughs, which is
way
very nice.
Later in the series, which is kind of cool. Like we're talking not just the next book, but a couple books down the line. You're like, oh, that's what he was talking about, which is cool because it's like Easter eggs. It's like you discover, oh yeah, I know what they're talking about. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But another thing that kind of happens, and Paul and I have discussed this sometimes, is that because you've read the whole series and it really does flow very well. Like Paul was saying, he doesn't remember what happens in Grave Peril. He'll remember when he starts reading it. He'll go, this is the book where this happens.
Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 different plots that it could be that would work with that title. I don't think it's the one I'm thinking of, just because I'm pretty sure. Is Grave Peril the one where we get Butters?
Yes.
Oh, it is?
Yes. Yes, that'll be the one where we meet,
Do we get Sue?
Sue?
No, because that's a later one with Butters, isn't it?
I'm sorry, I have a cat tail in my face.
Oh, kitty.
Oh, little baby.
Kitty.
Mwah.
No, he hates.
He does.
Anyways, we'll talk about Grave Peril when we get to it. But yeah, everything flows and there's a lot of connection, and you were saying?
Yes, yeah. So it becomes difficult to keep track of what happens in which book. Despite the fact that there are, we mentioned before, the book names tend to hint at what's going on in the book, or it's some sort of a pun, or what have you.
Yeah.
Probably the easiest one to remember what happens is the one called Ghost Story.
Yes.
And that's...
You will know why when you get there.
It's self-explanatory.
Oh.
But anyway, so in this book, there's one thing I did mention, or well, not mention, but there's one thing that I did kind of notice is that there's I don't know if this is true or not. I studied a little bit of Shakespearean literature in college, and in a lot of the comedies, the actors tend to break the fourth wall a lot and will talk to the audience. Harry actually does that a good bit of the time, because he'll say things like, "Don't look at me like that," or "Stop laughing."
Yeah.
To certain things that he does, which adds comedic timing, which is timing. How can you do timing?
That's weird, because I never thought of it as breaking the fourth wall, but it kind of actually is.
Well, who's he talking to? Himself?
Well, the whole thing is the Dresden Files. It's kind of like him writing down in his diary, if you will, what's happening. So, pretty much the whole time he's talking to the audience.
He's acknowledging that there is an audience.
Yeah.
Now we don't know. The series has not been completed, but Jim Butcher had said at one point that it was going to be 20 books and then a finalizing trilogy. So all in all, it's going to be 23 books. So who knows? Maybe it is. We're just reading the accounts of Harry Dresden. We're just reading his journals. Maybe this is a wizarding student far in the future who's actually reading the history of this particular wizard who was well known in Chicago and was involved in all sorts of shenanigans.
Or who knows, it might be the last person on Earth reading the person who destroyed the Earth. Who knows?
That could also be a thing.
It kind of could.
I mean, this guy, he just... Yeah, Harry's the hero. I'm gonna use the bunny ears, okay? I'm gonna say hero. Because, he always wants to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of... There's usually a lot of bodies in the wake of it.
Yeah.
And
a lot of burned buildings.
This
one doesn't have a burned building, does it?
No. Well, because Harry exhausts his
magic.
He does completely exhaust his magic, which freaks him out. Because he tries to do magic and it produces, that migraine.
There are definitely destroyed buildings in his path, but no blowed up ones.
You didn't blow up. Which is a bit of a theme. We do get a little bit of a hint about his past. In Stormfront, didn't really talk about his teacher, where he learned his craft and all that jazz, but Bob does mention Justin in this book.
Yes.
Justin was Harry's teacher, and Bob says that Justin deserved what he got.
Yeah, and we also kind of get the scene of his other student under Justin, Elaine,
right?
Who basically fell with Justin. What we're told in this book is fell with Justin, used her magic to hold Dresden down as Justin tried to turn Dresden,
Harry.
Harry dark.
Basically to a dark warlock.
And Harry defended himself, set the building on fire, burned up Justin, and that's why he had that doom of Damocles set upon him, because he technically killed someone with magic, even though it was in self-defense.
Yeah,
so
it was self-defense, but he still killed someone with magic, so the council is all, I don't know, blah, 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 being angry old men.
I just thought of something in a later book that's super exciting. Anyways.
Not super exciting, just a reveal. But anyway. But so yeah, so we do get this kind of, we get a little bit more of the past. So we know that Harry had a teacher whose name was Justin. Justin was an asshole and got killed for his troubles, and Harry was reluctantly the one who did kill him using self-defense. Because Harry does mention a couple of times that, like, the raw magic, the easiest magic for a wizard to first learn is fire. So, and that's kind of his shtick, is fire.
The world was in peace until the Fire Nation came.
And everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
We should do some episodes on each book of...
I like that series.
That series.
We don't like the movie. No. I haven't seen it.
There is no movie in Bossing Say.
There's no movie in Bossing Say. Yes.
Anyways.
Anywho. So it's interesting that we get to see this little glimpse.
Yes. So, what is your favorite part of this book, or favorite line, or did you want to think about while I share mine?
Yeah.
So, my favorite line in this book is Dresden has been under arrest a couple times and kept evading arrest. Shenanigans. He's infiltrated the police station, and the Loup-Garou, the rich guy who turns into a complete monster,
McFinn.
is now a complete monster and tearing up the police station.
Yeah.
So, Carmichael has one of the junior, I don't know if he's a detective or just a police officer, basically do whatever Dresden wants, because Dresden is the one in the know. Even though Carmichael kind of doesn't believe in Dresden, at that moment he's willing to say, just do what Dresden needs. So Dresden is at one of his lowest points at this point. And
certainly not his lowest.
No. So he's kind of going crazy, like almost manic laughter and all this other stuff. But then he kind of realizes what he can do to stop this werewolf. And so he tells Rudy, or Officer Rudolph, tells Rudy to get him some stuff, and like he gets all confident. Like he still kind of has that manic feel to him, but as he's walking out, Rudy says, "But you're still under arrest." And so Dresden says, "I can't be under arrest right now. I don't have the time." As he walks out, it's fantastic. I can't be under arrest right now. I don't have the time.
Very inconvenient right now, okay? Not now!
I love that scene.
I do like that in Jim's writing, how there can be a really dire situation, this kind of stuff. I think this is one of the reasons why Harry does grow on me a little bit throughout the series.
Yeah.
Because there's a snark to him. Now, I grew up absolutely loving Spider-Man. I read the comics, I watched the 90s television show, all that jazz. So I love a snarky hero or heroine. You know, they're just bantering all the time. I love that. I love the humor. So I do love the injection of humor that gets put into these situations. It always makes me smile. I don't know if I have a favorite line of the book. I suppose, I don't know. I do like, I like the scene when Susan is cleaning up Harry.
Yeah.
And they have a love scene. I do like that scene. I'm a bit of a romantic. I'll give you that. But knowing what I know from the rest of the series, I have to say my favorite scene is with Chauncey. And with Chauncey baiting
the
him.
reveal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
the partial reveal.
Yeah.
Yeah, your foot is very warm.
Sorry.
So that probably has to be my favorite scene.
Right.
When, he's talking about this stuff and trying to bait Harry, and then of course he gets super pissed about it because it doesn't work. But the realization. I do also like the climax of it where they were talking about, and I mean it was obvious, even though Harry didn't click on it because there's too much shit going on. I mean, he's broken and bruised and all this stuff. Later in the book, they do talk about how he seems to heal unusually quickly, and that's down to him being a wizard, essentially. Yeah. But, I mean, in this book, he gets beaten. I mean, when I say beaten, I am talking about people with steel-toed boots and, tire irons and all this. I mean, he doesn't, not because, they mention it. And again, this, is a credit to this very visceral way of writing. You very much get pulled into the scene. I said it was difficult to get into this book initially, but when you get into it, and a lot of these scenes, and this particular book is just a gore fest. I mean, it is nasty from beginning to end.
Just wait until the horror convention.
Oh, I know. SplatterCon. I remember SplatterCon. I remember. But it's just, you really get sucked into the scene.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Butcher describes everything in great detail. And this scene was, it was really, really harsh. He talks about how these people, they don't want to kill him. They just want to hurt him. And they do a really good job of it. And it's like, oh. So he's broken and bruised and all this stuff. And he's trying to fight, like, all these people at the same time. And with McFinn, who's cursed with this werewolf thing, it's like you can't do anything except with inherited silver. And he's like, I don't have jack shit. Of course he has jack shit. He has the silver pentacle that his mom passed down to him. So he uses that as his killing blow. And that's a pretty cool scene. Slightly ruined by Murphy's intrusion, I feel.
Well, sort of.
Very inconvenient.
And yet, the video that Susan recorded of that...
What mysteriously disappeared?
It did mysteriously disappear, but the way... Like, it works both ways. The way we see through Dresden's eyes during the scene. Mm-hmm. And then we see the video that occurred, and it shows...
It shows what happened from an outsider perspective.
Yeah, so Dresden throws something at a big wolf that's coming up on
something
Murphy.
Big and hairy and weird.
And Murphy shoots the federal agent who's about to
brain Dresden.
And then spins around and shoots the big monster multiple times. Of course, Dresden and Murphy knows that those were not silver or inherited silver bullets, so they didn't actually do anything.
But the
video
reflex.
Shows it as
Murphy saving the day.
Yeah.
Which is great, because Murphy's been because after the last book, it was kind of hinted that Harry and Gentleman Johnny Marcone, the mobster, were in cahoots. And Harry, of course, is not liaison, but he's a consultant that goes into the special investigators, specifically Karen, to help her out. So there's kind of this suspicion, internal affairs is like, well, maybe she's in cahoots with Marcone, which, mobster in cahoots with the cops, it happens.
And it is happening.
Of course it is happening. So, she's been under this investigation. But after the release of this video, it relaxes off. She even not promoted, but she gets recognition.
They actually print a actual name placard for her door.
Right, because before she had just had a tape
with a handwritten
piece of paper, that had her title and everything. So now she actually has a nameplate on the door, which is great, because she's getting the recognition that she deserves.
Yeah.
And, and has lifted a great burden off of her, because that is unfortunately a big dichotomy. Harry is a consultant. His job is to help. But because he feels like he can't reveal everything, a lot of the time, Murphy and her people end up staying in the dark about certain things, which is kind of, unfortunately, why half of her unit gets slaughtered in this book. So it's, you know, it's a toss-up. And I cannot remember if Harry finally eases off and starts telling her. I mean, throughout the whole series, it's a theme of him holding back information.
He does get better after this, and at the end of the book, he does admit that withholding information is not protecting people. He should be arming them with knowledge so that they can be, or can help protect themselves. Right. Which I think is kind of the theme, kind of the moral punch of this book is you don't help people by keeping them ignorant. Right,
exactly, which is important to note. And I just slipped a lot of my
goodness, that's a lot of stitches.
Of this needle, so bear with me. You talk.
I'm pretty much done. The only other question I had was why doesn't he make more potions? Because we're shown the number of times he spends unconscious in this book. Like one time he definitely said he was unconscious like almost an entire night and the rest of the next day. And yet, later on, he's able to use potions. So the potions definitely have a shelf life of a few days.
They do, but, I mean, because he does, like, a perk up, you know, like, wake me up potion. But that's the potion that's kind of his undoing. Mm-hmm. Because
he's too perky.
Yeah, in using it, he uses way too much magic and totally exhausts himself.
In which the last act of the book, he has no magic.
Oh, Osiris is doing something. Hang
okay. Okay.
Keep talking. What are you doing? You little baby.
And so we also get this idea of, or this thing where the potions are only used once, and then we never make a similar potion again.
Maybe he only has limited ingredients, because like for the wake me up potion he uses like the first ray of sunshine of the day, you know? So maybe it's difficult.
Surely he can collect another first ray of sunshine of the day.
I'm not a wizard. I don't know how it works.
And stale coffee, that should be easy to come by. I don't know, I think it's, well, part of it is just tropes in stories. You always want to show off new ideas and new things instead of constantly bringing up old things again.
Right.
Which leads to this whole trope that's in a lot of movies, a lot of television series. It's like, do it once and then never mention it again.
Well, but he produced, I mean, he produced potions in the previous book.
Right. But again, they weren't the same potions.
No, they weren't the same potions. But if you recall, the last potions he made kind of screwed him over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
But his blending into the background potion, I feel like, would be very useful to make again and again.
But again, in that one, he made it too well because he was trying to warn everybody about the giant beast coming after him, and no one would pay attention to him.
But the whole idea of wizards is knowledge and preparation. Now that he knows what the potion does, in theory, he would be better able to use it in the future. But again, like I said, this is just a trope of media. The same reason why in like television series, when a villain almost conquers the world, but then one luck happenstance means they fail, if they just tried the plan again, it would probably work. But it's like, nope, let's never use any of those plans again.
Never talk about it.
But again, as I said, that's just media trying to keep it interesting instead of just boring old.
Yeah, same old, same old.
There's a reason why some people find history boring. It's like, oh, and then there was an uprising. Oh, and then there was an uprising. Oh, and then there were invaders. Oh, and then there were invaders. And it's kind of the same thing over and over again. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you look into history, there's a lot more going on than that, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have.
I'll see if I have anything else. Oh, okay. So, this is just an interesting note I kind of made, and I found it a little odd. From a Christian standpoint, or from a Catholic standpoint, this makes sense. But to me, it didn't really. So, Harry does the whole soul gaze thing, right?
Yes.
And if the individual he's looking at has a soul, then he sees into their souls. Now, he does this with Tara West. And he sees nothing. She's not a demon or a creature from the Never Never like he assumes. She's just a wolf.
Yeah.
So I find it a little odd as someone who loves all things that have 4 legs and a tail. Or maybe not a tail, but like, you know, I mean, there was a possum in our recycling bin the other night and I still thought it was cute. You know, so it's just kind of like, it's odd to me that she clearly loves McFinn.
Yep.
And she clearly cares about the kids that she's training. And she feels like when they think all is lost and they're all together in this pit and they think that McFinn is going to come and rip them all to shreds, I mean, she is protecting the other wolves. She's giving them comfort. You know, she's holding them, these kids, and all this stuff. And I'm like, and this lady doesn't have a soul just because she's a dog?
Does he ever soul gaze anything that's not specifically human?
He does not want to ever look at... Well, okay, so he did look at Bianca in the first book, and there was nothing to see.
Yeah.
But she's a vampire. She's a particular kind of vampire. Because...
We'll get to that.
Right, so it's like... So yeah, I mean, because...
No, because I think who you're thinking of is still...
We're trying not to give anything away. I still find it... I thought it was weird.
I think it's just that they call it... And Dresden and the whole Wizards Council could be confused by this. But I think it's called a soul gaze, but I don't think it's looking into just another soul. I think it's literally only works with other humans or like half humans or mostly human type things. Because I don't think we ever see him soul gaze anything that is not specifically human. And so I think a wolf, like, I don't know if it's DNA based or what, is just different enough from human, even though she can turn into one, that I think if he thought about it, and, like, the Wizard Council was a better group of wizards who actually cared about knowledge, they would probably rename it, or figure out why it doesn't work. But by that same sense, we never see him soul gaze with Mr., his cat.
That's true, and Mr. clearly has a personality of his own.
Yeah, so I think if I had to use science, which step 1 in science is you don't know. You put possibilities together and try and be less wrong. Even though Dresden doesn't see... I mean, Dresden's wizard. He's not meant to understand science.
No. Science doesn't agree with him.
He makes claims about science that is clearly nothing about science. Because if somebody had that scene of what's going on with a wolf and Murphy and all that, there would be the scientific response is, yes, there is probably a high probability that's fake. But there's also a small probability that's not fake. Not just a blank, oh, nope, close our ears. We're not going to learn about anything we don't like. Because that's not science.
True.
That's anti-science.
But yeah, I just found it interesting since this individual clearly loves and cares and has pride.
Yeah, and I think that whole it not working is primarily just a plot point to point out that she's not human.
Yeah, I guess so. Because then because when that happens, he automatically assumes she's some sort of a fae or a demon or something. Because creatures from the Never Never don't have souls, or they don't have any souls to look upon. I think that's correct. Later on in the series, we do meet some fae. We meet some greater fae, and I don't recall if he does if he does a soul gaze with him or not.
No.
Well, we'll get into the whole.
Yeah, we'll figure it out as we go. So in future comments, if we mention him soul gazing something that's not human, point it out in the chat.
Point it out for us, because hey, we love picking apart little plot holes. Yeah. It's just be mean to the writer.
Well, not
okay.
mean, but understand why choices were made.
Yeah.
Makes us better crafters. So, I think that wraps it up for this.
I think it does. I mean, it was a fun book, and I have to say this, because of the scene with Chauncey, it makes me a little bit more excited to reread the series again. A little bit more than Stormfront did, because Stormfront was kind of like, okay.
It was kind of a self-contained story.
Was.
Because when you write a book, you don't know if it's going to be series, so you write a book.
Right. Kind of like movies.
Yeah.
But, but sometimes they just need to stop. So anyway, I enjoyed it. It was definitely a book that got me way more into the universe than Stormfront did, because it was just, everything was just so vivid. So I definitely enjoyed the read. Looking forward to the little foreshadowing being revealed and stuff, because it's always a lot of fun. And next week we're not doing a video. Actually planning on not doing a video.
Yep,
Labor Day weekend. Fun. We are out of town.
And then the following week will be our first actual live stream.
That's right.
Where we will most likely have 0 watchers.
Probably.
It'll be a while before we get any watchers.
Most likely.
But as the last non-live episode, I want to thank every future person who actually is watching this.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate any and all support. So our first live episode will be the first book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series.
The increasingly inaccurately named Hitchhiker's Trilogy.
Was it called the Hitchhiker's Trilogy at one point?
Yes. And then, by the 4th book, the little tagline was the increasingly inaccurately named.
Because Douglas Adams is hilarious, and I can't wait to read some of his stuff again.
Yeah, all told, I'd be willing to say Douglas Adams will be, as of that episode, probably the best writer we've talked about.
Oh, I like Patricia Britt.
We haven't actually talked about her yet.
True. I've just been reading a lot of her short stories. They're fine.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining us. We hope
you
got some crafting done. Obviously, we got a little bit of crafting done.
A little bit.
Not as much as maybe.
I'm almost done with the word yarn.
I'm almost done with my neckline. It's a cowl neckline. That's why it's so big.
Alright.
Anyway, thanks guys. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Hold it.